We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. South Korea's President Yoon reverses martial law after MPs vote to block it. Opposition demands Yoon step down, else might face impeachment. UK says terrorists are likely to carry out attacks in Bangladesh, updates travel advisory for its citizens. India's External Affairs Minister highlights progress in India-China engagement in Parliament's lower house, says de-escalation is the next priority, will brief the upper house today. ISRO to launch Prasar 3 mission satellites for Sun Corona study from India's Sriharikota. Mission underscores international collaboration in space exploration. And the Men's Junior Asia Cup Hockey, India set up final showdown against Pakistan after defeating Malaysia 3-1. And on to the top story this hour. South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol has announced the removal of emergency martial law early on Wednesday after lawmakers defied security forces to vote against his declaration. Yoon imposed a martial law late Tuesday, vowing to eliminate anti-state forces. He said that he was acting to protect the country from threats posed by North Korea. However, after the National Assembly demanded its repeal, he withdrew the troops.
After the National Assembly's demand to lift martial law troops have been withdrawn. I will accept the National Assembly's demand and lift martial law through a cabinet meeting. However, I ask the National Assembly to immediately stop the reckless activities of paralyzing the function of the country through repeated impeachment attempts, manipulation of legislation and budget.
Well, earlier, South Korean Parliament voted to lift the declaration, with the National Assembly Speaker Woo Won-shik declaring that lawmakers will protect democracy with the people. All 190 lawmakers who participated in the vote supported the lifting of martial law. Yoon's move was the first declaration of martial law since the country's democratization in 1987. The country's last previous martial law was in October 1979. Meanwhile, protests have started in South Korea as the country wakes up hours after South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol lifted the martial law order. Country's main opposition party has called on President Yoon to resign or face impeachment following his decision to briefly declare martial law in the democratic nation. And the United States expressed concern over the unfolding situation in South Korea, emphasizing its unwavering commitment to the Republic of Korea as a vital ally in the Indo-Pacific.
We will continue to follow developments on the ground very closely. We want this to be resolved peacefully in accordance with the rule of law, and certainly the legislature voting to pass something would be consistent with the law of that country, certainly.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Embassy in Seoul has put out an advisory asking Americans to avoid areas where protests are being taken. And one of South Korea's largest labor unions, the Korean Federation of Trade Unions, has called on its members to strike until President Yoon Suk-yeol resigns. In a post on social media, the KCTU described Yoon's short-lived declaration of martial law as a crime of insurrection, while calling on its more than 1 million members to gather in Seoul and other regional locations to oppose the move. Meanwhile, South Korea's finance ministry said on Wednesday it is ready to deploy unlimited liquidity into financial markets if needed. The announcement came after Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok and Bank of Korea Governor Ri Chang-yong held emergency meetings overnight. The country's financial regulator is ready to deploy 10 trillion won That's over $7 billion in a stock market stabilization fund anytime. South Korea's won losses early on Wednesday, coming off the two-year low of 1,443.40 hit overnight after Yoon lifted his shock martial law declaration. And moving on, the United Kingdom has updated its travel advisory for Bangladesh, citing risks of terrorist attacks across the country. In a warning on Tuesday, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office said terrorists are likely to try to carry out attacks in Bangladesh. The attacks could be indiscriminate, including in places visited by foreign nationals, such as crowded areas, religious buildings, political rallies. It added that there have been occasional attacks against minority religious communities and targeting police and security forces. These have included improvised explosive device attacks in major cities. The advisory asked the British citizens to remain aware of their surroundings, particularly in and around police buildings, avoid large gatherings and other locations with the police or security presence, and follow the advice of local authorities. Well, the UK advisory comes as India's neighbour remains in a state of turmoil as religious minorities, especially Hindus, are under growing threat. Arrests, attacks and accusations have created an atmosphere of fear, sparking outrage both in the country and in India. Here's the full story by Mihir Maikuri. Take a look.
In Bangladesh, the persecution of minorities, particularly Hindus, continues to escalate, showing no signs of abating. The situation took a dramatic turn when Hindu religious leader Chinmoy Krishna Das Prabhu was arrested last week, facing sedition charges. This arrest has sparked widespread outrage across neighbouring India, where protests have erupted in various regions. One such protest took place in India's national capital, New Delhi, on Tuesday. The Hindu Suraksha Seva Trust organized a sit-in outside the United Nations office to voice their opposition to the ongoing persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh.
आज सिर्फ एक ही प्रदर्शन है, वहाँ की हिंदुओं की रक्षा हो। जिस प्रकार से वहाँ की हिंदुओं की निर्मम हत्या किया जा रहा है, इसके नाते आज हिंदू सुरक्षा सेवा ट्रस्ट के तत्वाधान में सभी साधु संत एकत्रित हुए हैं।
Hindu organizations also held demonstrations in cities like Aligarh, Banda, Prayagraj, Jaipur and Raipur, expressing their solidarity with the persecuted Hindus in Bangladesh. The legal battle for Chinmoy Krishna Das Prabhu continues as the situation grows more intense. In Bangladesh, no lawyer has come forward to represent the religious leader in a Chattogram court due to threats from Islamist groups. As a result, the court has now deferred his bail hearing. In a separate development, Advocate Regan Acharya was seriously injured while seeking the bail hearing of Chinmoy Krishna Das Prabhu. The Vice President of ISKCON Kolkata, Radharaman Das, condemned the attack.
हम ये भी रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं बांग्लादेश गवर्नमेंट से कि जो भी चिन्मय कृष्ण प्रभु के एडवोकेट हैं या उनको डिफेंड करने के लिए आ रहे हैं, उनको सुरक्षा प्रदान की जाए.
Tuesday also saw a petition being filed in the High Court in Bangladesh seeking the suspension of all Indian television channels within the country. All eyes remain on the unfolding situation and its potential to impact bilateral relations between India and Bangladesh. Mihir Makhri reporting for DD India.
And U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's pick to lead the Drug Enforcement Administration, Chad Chronister, is withdrawing just 2 days after his selection was announced, citing the gravity of the job. Trump had announced his intention to nominate Chad Chronister to lead the DEA on Sunday. Trump has promised to tackle the fentanyl crisis that has resulted in a big wave of overdose deaths, and the DEA will be critical in that effort. The position deals with managing the U.S.-Mexico border and drug trafficking control. As per reports, Mexican cartels such as CJNG and the Sinaloa cartel are responsible for a significant proportion of fentanyl and other deadly drugs trafficked into the United States. The agency is part of the Justice Department and enforces the United States-controlled substance laws and regulations, aiming to reduce supply of and demand for such substances. and Donald Trump cast a shadow over the journey of migrants on Tuesday as a new caravan of migrants set out from southern Mexico. Migrants from El Salvador and Venezuela expressed their hopes of finding a way to enter the United States once they reach their final destination, despite being aware of Trump's deportation plans. Many caravans are making their way across Mexico towards the U.S. border. Trump has vowed mass deportations and a vast immigration crackdown as soon as he takes office on the 20th of January. Meanwhile, Trump's attorneys sought to dismiss his historic criminal fraud conviction in a new filing released on Tuesday, arguing that outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden used a similar reasoning to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. The Democratic president pardoned his son on Sunday after Hunter was convicted earlier this year of tax evasion and illegally possessing a firearm, arguing he was selectively and unfairly prosecuted by the Department of Justice only because he's my son. Trump's motion to dismiss, filed on Monday, saw his legal team cite the arguments used by Biden to make their own case to presiding judge Joan Merchan. Well, thousands of Georgians protest for the sixth consecutive night in front of the parliament in capital Tbilisi against the government decision to not hold EU membership talks until 2028. The country of 3.7 million people has been gripped by crisis since last Thursday. Protesters shoot fireworks at shielded police cordons at the parliament building, who retaliate by spraying them with water out of a hose. As a response, Georgian police used water cannon, tear gas to disperse demonstrators. At a pro-EU protest, police also used water cannon against protesters who continued to throw fireworks. And news from around the world now. French lawmakers will vote today on no confidence motions, which are all but certain to oust the coalition of Michel Barnier. This will be the first French government to be forced out by no confidence vote in more than 60 years. French Prime Minister Michel Barnier on Tuesday rejected the idea that President Emmanuel Macron should resign to unblock the country's political crisis, calling him the guarantor of stability. California has paused the distribution of raw milk products after retail testing of 2 samples detected bird flu. The flu has spread among U.S. dairy cattle since March and has infected nearly 500 herds in California. Nearly 60 people have contracted bird flu this year in the U.S., including 31 in California, most of them farm workers with exposure to sick poultry or cattle. A search and rescue effort was underway in Pennsylvania after a woman searching for her cat appears to have plunged into a sinkhole that authorities said was at least 30 feet deep. The area was previously home to coal mining, which could account for the sinkhole opening up at that location. UK officials hinted on Tuesday that a deal was in the works with Greece to end a decades-long dispute over the highly contested and priceless Parthenon marbles. Greek authorities maintain that the sculptures were looted in 1802 by British ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, but London claims that the sculptures were legally acquired and then sold to the British Museum. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Kuwait arrives in India on an official visit to strengthen multifaceted ties. IIT Kanpur develops country's first inspection robot for power grid substations to collect data from different places. And we'll tell you all about the World Chess Championship 2024.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Tuesday informed the Parliament's lower house that full disengagement with China has been achieved in eastern Ladakh. Jaishankar emphasized the need for continued de-escalation, identifying it as India's next priority. The minister will brief the upper house today.
The House is aware that our ties have been abnormal since 2020. When peace and tranquility in the border areas were disturbed as a result of Chinese actions. Recent developments that reflect our continuous diplomatic engagement since then have set our ties in the direction of some improvement.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar briefing India's lower house of parliament about the latest developments in India-China ties after October's successful disengagement and patrolling agreement along the line of actual control or LAC in eastern Ladakh. He noted how relations are now on the path towards being mended after they were derailed in the aftermath of the clashes between troops in Doklam in 2020, following the amassing of a large number of troops by China.
The situation arising after our counter-deployment in 2020 called for multiple sets of responses. The immediate priority was to ensure disengagement from friction points so that there would be no further untoward incidents or clashes. This, sir, has been fully achieved, as I will explain. The next priority will be to consider de-escalation that would address the massing of troops along the LAC with associated accompaniments.
The minister also pointed out how, during the intervening period, the Indian Armed Forces carried out effective counter-deployment to the enhanced Chinese presence, and border infrastructure was also bolstered.
The House would also recognize that there has been a significant improvement in the border infrastructure, which has made such effective counter-deployment possible. This is reflected, amongst others, in the increase of border infrastructure allocations in the last decade. The Border Roads Organization, BRO, alone has incurred 3 times the expenditure level of what it was a decade ago.
The External Affairs Minister also spelled out what India expects will happen next in its engagement with China to gradually normalize relations.
The conclusion of the disengagement phase now allows us to consider other aspects of our bilateral engagement in a calibrated manner, keeping our national security interests first and foremost. In my recent meeting with Foreign Minister Wang Yi, we reached an understanding that the special representatives and the Foreign Secretary level mechanisms will be convening soon.
Clearly, India's approach of no business as usual till border tensions are addressed has led China to rethink its stance. India will keep its security interests at the forefront in all dealings with China. Gautam Roy's report for DD India.
Well, all set to add another feather to its cap, the Indian Space Research Organisation will launch the PSLV C-59 Probha 3 mission on Wednesday at 16:08 IST from the Satish Dhawan Space Centre in southern state of Andhra Pradesh's Sriharikota. Showcasing India's role in global space innovation, the mission highlights advanced space technologies made possible by the collaboration between New Space India Limited, ISRO and European Space Agency. The mission will function as an orbital lab, demonstrating acquisition, rendezvous proximity operations and formation flying while validating innovative metrology sensors and control algorithms, opening up novel methods of mission control. And the Foreign Affairs Minister of Kuwait, Abdullah Ali Aliaha, arrives in India on an official visit on Tuesday. Following his arrival, the Ministry of External Affairs expressed a warm welcome to the Kuwait minister and stated his visit would further strengthen the multifaceted relationship between India and Kuwait. His visit will include high-profile meetings, starting with a call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi and then meet External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. India and Kuwait share a historically strong bilateral relationship that has stood the test of time. Rooted in centuries of trade and cultural exchange, the partnership predates Kuwait's independence in 1961, during which the Indian rupee served as its legal tender. And India and the UK on Tuesday reviewed their ties with a focus on the early conclusion of a mutually beneficial free trade pact, boosting counter-terror cooperation and enhancing defence ties. At the second edition of the India-UK 2+2 Foreign and Defence Dialogue held in Delhi, the two sides agreed to revitalise the ties by identifying new focus areas of collaboration. The Ministry of External Affairs said both sides discussed the entire gamut of strategic partnership and emphasised the importance of a sustained high-level engagement to advance the dynamic relations. At the 2+2 dialogue, the two sides also discussed ways to foster innovation in critical and emerging technologies, deepen cooperation in clean and green energy and technology, health and enhance cultural, educational and people-to-people linkages. Well, 4 December is celebrated every year as Navy Day. As India commemorates Navy Day 2024, the Indian Navy continues solidifying its position at the forefront of the nation's maritime ambitions. With a legacy steeped in operational excellence and strategic foresight, the Navy has transformed into a formidable force capable of safeguarding nation's interest. The Navy embodies India's ascent as a maritime power, from modernizing its fleet to integrating advanced technology and fostering global partnerships. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, President Draupadi Murmu, will witness the operational demonstration by the Navy on Wednesday in the eastern state of Odisha. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. 2 cars caught fire after colliding with each other on Delhi's Dwarka Expressway. 1 person died and several were reported injured in the tragic accident. All the injured have been admitted to the hospital and are currently undergoing treatment. Further details are awaited. Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, developed country's first inspection robot for power grid substations. The new technology will revolutionize the way substation equipment inspections are conducted. It will ensure safer operations and avoid repetitive routine maintenance manually. This robot is equipped with an array of sensors such as high-definition visual, infrared, thermal and stereo cameras that can automatically detect anomalies and potential faults in equipment. India's Doda district in J&K turned into a winter wonderland after receiving snowfall. This marked the beginning of tourism season in the region as the snow blanketed mountains and roads. And on to some sports news now. The Indian junior men's hockey team defeated Malaysia 3-1 in the semi-final of the Men's Junior Asia Cup to set up title clash against Pakistan. Unbeaten so far in the tournament, India scored through Dilraj Singh in the 10th minute, Rohit in 45th and final goal from Sharda Nantiwari in the 52nd minute to secure their place in the final. Malaysia's 1 goal from a penalty stroke converted by Azumuddin Kamaruddin in the 57th minute. Now, India will take on arch rivals Pakistan in the blockbuster final on Wednesday. Pakistan defeated Japan 4-2 in the first semi-final. India had earned a hard-fought 2-1 victory against the long-time rivals to clinch the gold medal last time round. And Indian Grandmaster D. Gukesh squandered a golden opportunity to take lead as he was held for a 4th consecutive draw by defending champion China's Ding Lizhen in the World Chess Championship 2024 on Tuesday. Wielding the white pieces, Gukesh put Ding under pressure earlier with an out-of-the-box opening play. Ding was soon forced into a time scramble, with the defending champion forced into a position where to make 20 moves in under 25 minutes to stay alive in the match. But the Chinese Grandmaster found a way to stay afloat and forced Gukesh into some difficult positions before the game tapered into a draw. The draw left both the players tied on 3.5 points each with 7 more matches to go. Game 8 will take place on Wednesday. The first player to reach 7.5 points over 14 games will win the prestigious title in Singapore. And India's public broadcaster Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platform. Waves provide a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then download Waves today. That's all for this edition of DD India Live. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.